Hello, educators. My name is Mary Carrington, and I'm an AIG teacher with Moore County Schools. And I'm very excited to share with you some ideas about integrating STEM projects with multicultural literature. I'm very excited about this Building Engineers in K-12 Classrooms conference. I hope everyone is very engaged and gets wonderful ideas. Why using multicultural literature with STEM is critical. It recognizes and promotes diversity in STEM fields. It acknowledges the contribution of minorities to enhance a cross-cultural understanding and respect for individuals. And it brings inclusivity for all of your students. Why STEM is so important. It engages students. The excitement, the level of hands-on engagement is just wonderful. Problem solving is the key, very important in our 21st century. It develops critical and creative thinking and integrates collaboration and communication. So as they're working in their teams, they must collaborate and communicate with each other. It prepares students for future careers such as civil engineers, software developers, mathematicians, and scientists. So what is multicultural literature? It's many different types. It focuses on texts regardless of genre that focus on people of color, regional cultures, religious minorities, the disabled, the elderly, and in female perspectives. So here we have our female scientist, doctor, showing how she can be just as important and powerful. Relevancy. Multicultural themes should be relevant to all students, no matter their personal culture. Multicultural text selections. Choose texts that have a clear problem that work well with engineering or constructing a solution. So every good story has a problem. Have the children identify that problem and then decide how they could work to solve the problem. Many fairy tales and fables have an engineering-related problem. Just have to think a little deeply. The Three Little Pigs, you're going to provide multiple materials and try to get them to build the strongest house, which you can test in many ways, whether it be shaking the table, or some teachers have even brought in some type of a blower to see which one could still stand. Goldilocks, as you know, she broke Baby Bear's chair, so building a strong chair, and you could test it with different types of weights. The Gingerbread Man tale. So, you know, he was tricked using the fox to cross the stream and to be eaten. So designing a boat that he could use instead of the fox to cross the stream. So have different materials. You can also put a weight in whatever the child constructs and have like a large tub of water. And those are always very, very successful and engaging activities. Teach the history of the tale. So even if some of the text selections are not going to look so multicultural, talking about the country where it originated and history, most of the tales have very incredible history. Also using multicultural versions of the fairy tales. There are 23 different versions of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Each one a little different. The children would be engaged and they could compare and contrast and still constructing or building something to solve the problem. Multicultural text selections Be sure to include multiple cultures. You don't want to use the same culture every time. It could be fiction or nonfiction. Choose them carefully and be very purposeful in what you select. If you can integrate with your curriculum topics where appropriate, of course, that's even better. So if you're studying biomes with your students in science, you could pick multicultural books that focus on those different biomes and tie it all together. So you will want to use the engineering design process. It is a wheel or a cycle, and it's always going to start with ask. So that's at the top of the wheel. So the children, you get them to identify what is the problem and talk about constraints from the very beginning. Now, the engineering design process has other steps for probably older grades. They often have a research step after ask, where the children would research the topic. For early elementary, I would suggest using this 5-step, and you can add in another one at the end. But this 5-step process is very doable, and the children seem to really understand it. The second step, to imagine. So that's the brainstorming phase. Spend a lot of time on that phase, and remember teaching them that no idea is a bad idea. You're going to all share your ideas and then start slowly working toward your best idea to choose a solution. Then they get to plan. Draw it first, write out the details, make a materials list. And of course, the most exciting step is the creation phase, where they get to make it and try it out. Now, most of the children will want to skip straight to create. You discuss the process, and they want to go right to the materials and start building. But it will definitely not be as successful if you skip the other steps. So after they've created what they came up with, it may or may not be successful. So the next step to improve it, to make it better, is really critical, because we can always do things better and learn and make it even better. Another step after improve is communicate, that I often put up. I have a poster of that too, where then they have to present their solutions and be able to communicate what they did. And this, teaching the vocabulary here and really sticking to these steps, will make every STEM activity much more successful with your students. Okay, the steps for teaching it. Teach the engineering design process. Have it posted somewhere on some type of a chart, or it could be a slide on your smartboard. Display the steps and learn the vocabulary. Even kindergartners do well with the vocabulary if they keep getting exposed to it. Model a problem-solving task with the whole group, going through each step and collaborating. So pick a simple task, a simple problem, and the whole class do one together. And that's where you can do examples and non-examples and try to get them understanding all the steps and working together. Try modeling a scenario where you skip a step or two. So you could go straight from ask to create, and then you would see what went wrong. Oh, I didn't have a good plan. Oh, I didn't have my materials listed. And they will start to see why it is better to use the whole process. Using STEM journals for structure and accountability. So this year I purchased STEM journals with some money that we were given for materials, and it is extremely successful. But you can also make your own. The children love them. Every child loves a book of their own, and all the steps are laid out with plenty of nice spaces for drawing and rethinking and reimagining. And I will continue to use these because it has, like I said, it has been so successful. The structure and accountability. So if you're just doing it in your head or writing it out on a little piece of paper, it's not the same as being allowed or able to write that all carefully in a book. So here's an example of one of my students. At the top, they wrote their goal, what they're trying to do, then drawing the first plan, and then materials are listed at the bottom. Another way I have had them to record the engineering design process is with fiction. I made this one-page document, and I made spaces for them to write the problem, imagine how they would brainstorm to solve the problem, plan an invention, again, the materials. The student writes a detailed description of their invention and how it works, and then the improving or the reflection piece. How could you improve your original plan or design? And this has worked well as just in another setting. Okay, so nursery rhymes have a lot of opportunity. Humpty Dumpty is one that I was introduced to in a training. So when you're teaching the history of Humpty Dumpty, it was originally a cannon in the English Civil War, and it was perched on the wall. And as they were doing battle and the wall started to crumble, the cannon actually fell off the wall, and they couldn't repair it to keep using it. It wasn't until Lewis Carroll drew Humpty Dumpty as an egg that's when we all started thinking of Humpty Dumpty as an egg that would break and not be able to be put back together. So the challenge for the children, after you read the tale and talk about the history, is to get them to design and build the tallest, strongest wall that could protect Humpty Dumpty and keep him from falling. So they have to design something that would help hold him at the top of the wall, because as we know, an oval or egg shape would roll and be able to fall off and break. The kiva planks, I'm going to show examples of using several times. If you haven't ever used them or worked with them, they are wonderful. They stack perfectly. They're just the right weight, very versatile. And if you ever get some money to spend, I highly recommend investing in those for using for STEM activities. You could use other building blocks, Legos or any other type of blocks that you have. So I give the students a time limit, not to make them nervous, but it adds a little competition, and it seems to really make the task more engaging when they know that time is going to run out, and give them a certain amount of each group of the kiva planks. So usually they will build something short. They don't understand both the tallest and strongest. And if it's short and very wide, it's very strong. It won't break when we try to shake the table or give it some type of test. But then we say, oh, but it's only 2 or 3 inches tall, because of course measuring, we're putting the math in there. And so the next time they have to design and build one that's even taller. And this has been very engaging, and it doesn't require much preparation, and the children love it. Here's a picture of 2 children working together, and there's their STEM journal there on the table where they have drawn their plan and then constructing it. Here are 2 other children working in their journal. You see their structure there beside the boy's head. After they build it, I've got a little wooden circle block, but it could be like a plastic Easter egg, anything like that, to actually put Humpty Dumpty at the top to use to test if he will stay on the wall and not fall off. Here's another pair working together. They've got their drawings, their plan. Now, it's not always easy for them to agree on a design, especially my students. Since I work with the academically gifted students, they want their idea to be the one, and it takes a lot of collaboration and cooperation. So they're learning all those skills as well as the actual engineering and designing. So moving on to some book titles and ideas. A Chair for My Mother, a very classic tale. The family has had a fire and all of their home goods were lost, And neighbors come together and help them get some things to have to rebuild, but they don't have any comfortable chairs or couches or anything. And this Hispanic family, the little girl goes after school to her mother's work and helps and earns some money. And she and the mother save money, and the goal is to buy a comfortable chair because she wants her mother to be able to come home and rest after working hard all day. So the problem is they need a chair, and the task would be to design and build a chair. So I said you could either use Kiva planks, Legos, or any other building material, then provide cotton balls or like batting strips, fabric squares, or other things that could help make the chair comfortable. And then you could test or have an evaluation with a rubric of which chair looks the most comfortable, and also if it would be sturdy. So that's a great book, of course, award winner, and you would be very successful with this task. Another title, Ada Twist Scientist. This series of books by Andrea Beatty are just absolutely wonderful. And she definitely uses the multicultural characters. And here, Ada Twist is a girl that is a scientist, and she wants to know the why of everything all the time. And she makes messes, and she drives her parents crazy. Throughout this book, there's a smell that a terrible smell that she can't figure out what is causing it. So the children get to hypothesize what they think that smell is being caused by. Ada, as you're reading it and discussing with the children, talk about how she always wants to understand and wants to know how things work. Talk with them about how science is messy. And then there's a STEM activity that I found and purchased through Teachers Pay Teachers, which I know is an incredible resource. So they're to test and find out which type of paper is best for cleaning up a water spill. Okay, so it's very, very well created and engaging. It lists the materials you'll need and talks about working in pairs. And these are the sheets that came with it. So all these different types of paper, then an eyedropper, which is incredibly fun for kids. They just absolutely love working with those. And water, and then a cup. So first they have to make their hypothesis. Which type of paper would be best to clean up a water spill? And they would draw a picture about it and write about it. Then they're to place 10 drops of water on each piece of paper and see what happens, how much water gets absorbed. I know we can all picture with a cardstock, it would roll off more easily. And then they record what they saw. So for each type, they record, and then they're going to come up with a solution, circle the paper that is best used to clean up a spill, and check their hypothesis. Of course, they always want their hypothesis to be right. They will go back and change their hypothesis, but you have to watch closely to be sure and discuss that, it's a learning process and you're not always going to guess right the first time. And there's no wrong answer in a hypothesis. Another book, A Carp for Kamiko, is a Japanese tale. A beautiful book. The illustrations are just incredible. So a Japanese girl wants desperately to fly a carp kite on Children's Day in Japan. But in their culture, only boys are allowed to participate. So she struggles with that tradition that she can't participate. Then she finds out there's another tradition that comes up where girls can, but still, we want equity. We want the girls to be able to do these things too. So I came up with an idea to design and plan a carp kite made of recyclable materials. So a big corner of my room is full of recyclable materials, clean recyclable materials, because they are absolutely the best to use for construction of things that are not just going to be built and then taken back down and used again. And although it can be messy and it can look like you're a hoarder with a lot of junk, it's very usable, and the children can get just as creative with those types of materials as things that you buy. So they're constructing, they're planning, they're testing, and this is really more of a STEAM activity because it has the art involved of creating a beautiful, colorful kite. Another book title, The Legend of John Henry. So he was an African-American folk hero. So there's a lot of discussion of how much of his story is true. They think he was a real person. He was extremely strong and hardworking, and he could outwork a drilling machine that was trying to drill through mountains for railroad construction. So I have a STEM kit that goes with the book that is very challenging for the children. It worked best for 4th and 5th grade, but something that I also found you could do is just to create a challenge using like toilet paper tubes or paper towel rolls, and you would give them the challenge to build a train, because the story is all about building the railroad. That would be, so the challenge would be, it has to be exactly 2 feet long. So, and if you give them a 12-inch ruler, it turns into estimation as well, instead of a tape measure where they could roll it out to exactly 2 feet. So I kind of like just give them a ruler instead of a tape measure, and scissors and glue, and tell them it has to have wheels. So they're already trying to decide if when they figure out how to cut them in half and use just half of it with wheels under it, then they use less of the toilet paper rolls. So that's the challenge, making it exciting but a little bit different. And the history of this tale is just wonderful, and the children love this one as well. Also, The Legend of Johnny Appleseed, John Chapman. So reading the history and culture behind that. And there's a simpler challenge to build an apple raft that can hold the weight of an apple without sinking. So sticks, which I saw where they actually suggested collecting sticks outside, but I'm picturing that being maybe impossible even if you don't have trees that drop sticks. You could easily use popsicle sticks or other types of craft sticks. Yarn to tie it together, and scissors, and then you would also need your tub of water and an apple to test. I have a kit that I ordered from Lakeshore that has the actual apple trees, and it has these fence posts, and the children have the task to use only 9 fence pieces and what is the largest amount of apple trees you can protect. So as Johnny Appleseed or John Chapman was going throughout the country planting apple trees, he needed to protect them as they grew, to protect them from wildlife or other things that could keep them from growing to their best. And I have got some pictures. Those kits were not very expensive, and they're very easy to use, and it's like a game for the children. So if you get some money for materials, they were made by Lakeshore STEM folktale kits. So here's a picture with a team of children working with those Johnny Appleseed trees. They've got their journals going where they drew their plan. Here's another one. I try to keep them separated during this time of the pandemic. It's hard. They really want to put their hands on each other's work and work together. So hopefully before too long, we can get back to that type of work together where you don't have to worry so much about keeping separate. Another book that I learned about in a Get Your Teach On session I attended this summer, The Empty Pot, is an amazing story about honesty and integrity. So there's so much you can do with it. And it's a really wonderful way to start the year with this book. So in the story, the Chinese emperor has a contest to choose his heir. And children are given a seed to see who can grow the best flowers from this seed. The thing they don't know is that the seed has already germinated or is dead, basically, and will not sprout. One child, Ping, is the only honest child that brings back an empty pot because the seed didn't work. All the other children, when they discovered the seed wouldn't grow, they got other seeds and tried to grow beautiful flowers, but it wasn't from the seed that the emperor gave. So talking about how Ping was rewarded because of his honesty and integrity is a very, very rich and beautiful tale. So for a STEM activity, I thought if you could construct a pot of some type using recyclable materials, and that the goal would be that it could hold soil and water. And if you did this unit, in the spring or whenever you're doing a unit about growing seeds or plants, then it would be a great time to either revisit the story or wait till that time of year. And whatever they would construct, you would test it out to see if it was sturdy enough to hold the soil, pour some water in and see if it would hold the water, and actually grow some seeds in those pots that they would construct. Okay, so I know that during 2019-2020, the Australian bushfires were highly in the news. They had some of the worst fires of their history. And I started trying to plan a real world issue that children could engage with. I started ordering books. These are nonfiction books. A Kid's Guide to Australia has incredible culture in it, everything about how they speak. It talks a lot about the Aboriginal people, the unique culture and animals and environment. It has pages in it already about the bushfire with interviews with firefighters. It sadly talks about the number of animals that were lost in these terrible, terrible fires. And that is kind of hard to deal with little children because you know how they love animals, and so I try to downplay that so much. But for them to understand the real problem, the Australian ABC's book to each letter of the alphabet is something wonderful about the culture of that continent and country. So then we also compared it to the USA wildfires that have been going on. And that was very engaging discussion, talked about the different types of vegetation and trees, why they called theirs bushfires and ours wildfires. And the goal to add the STEM piece were to use the Dash robots. And I used mats that have been used for robotics and put symbols of fire in a lot of the squares. I purchased Australian animals from Amazon and had them set up along the paths. And so the children had to plan a path where there were multiple ways to get there to rescue the animals. So they would get Dash to move to where these animals were between the fires. And they had to try to save them from the bushfires. A second layer was to plan and build a safe structure for the animals. So I had the children use Kiva planks for that. And there were some really incredible ones they came up with. The third layer, so this lasted for weeks and incredibly engaging. And they learned so much to add an attachment to Dash that could actually push the animals when they got to the square, rather than when Dash would get to a square to save an animal, the children would pick up the animal and move it. But then they said, I had them construct something that they could attach to Dash to actually move the animals. So here's a little boy that's programming Dash, and you can see he has to figure out how to turn and move to get to where the animals are. They absolutely love this. I think it's been very meaningful. It's not there. Yeah, hear the click. Okay, now try the green arrow again. Okay, so this is only their second time working with the robots, and these are first graders. Trying to keep them separate again, which is hard. Try again. Nyla's job. Okay, so Nyla, was that right? Nyla's job is going to be to move him back to start. You have to move him back because he's going to add another block. So you actually pick up the robot to repeat. If he made it to there, then what's the next step? You turn which way? To avoid the fire. Left. Good job. Good direction.
I know my left and right.
You sure do. Now you drive. Turn left. Yeah, the backward clock.
So this is my.
As you can see, it was very incredible engagement. They were learning so much, working together with different roles. Here were a couple of the structures that students were building. They said each animal would need to have its own enclosure that they could save. So we're using the Kiva planks again. They've got their journals out. Another book title, Wangari's Trees of Peace, is a true story from Africa. Wangari Maathai from Kenya planted trees to save the land from overdevelopment. Another strong female character, a strong female of color. And she was even arrested through the years for, they didn't like how she was trying to stop the development and stop the destruction of everything in their environment. It's a good Earth Day activity. Create a tree of peace using pipe cleaners or other materials. So this would also be a STEAM type activity. Of course, you could plant real trees. I know that we have through the years had students involved in beautification projects on campus. But this is an idea I found where they used pipe cleaners and other little created leaves, and then they put that peace sign on it. But reading that story is very rich and very inspiring and powerful. Another incredible book called The Arabic Quilt. It's absolutely wonderful. This would be another STEAM activity where it's more art-based. So Kanzi, this young Muslim girl, and her family have immigrated to America from Egypt. And they wear the different type clothing, and she looks different. She talks about her hair being different and her skin color. And she's worried about other students making fun of her or not belonging. But she describes her incredible teacher that makes her feel welcome from the very beginning and accepted. And an idea they come up with is that Kanzi, with help from her mother, will write every classmate's name in Arabic. And then the students learn also how to write their name in Arabic. So it's something new and exciting. They each get to decorate squares with their name on it, and they make a quilt for the whole class. So what a wonderful way to include the new student and make everybody learn together about acceptance and other cultures. So an idea you could do to extend this book would have students learn how to write their names in Arabic or a language of their choice. So it would be multicultural languages. And you could make together a multicultural paper quilt, or it could be with fabric if you have resources for that or people that would be able to do that. But I would invest in this book if you can, because it is so rich and beautiful. Another book, The Thing Lou Couldn't Do. Okay, and it's a wonderful book by Ashley Spires. So this wonderful little girl who's very adventurous, Lou, she has never climbed a tree, and she is afraid to climb a tree. And all of her friends make a plan to go up in the tree, and they're calling it their pirate ship, and they're going to have meetings up there and do cool things. But she is afraid, and she doesn't want to say she's afraid. So she makes all these excuses why she can't climb up the tree. And this book is wonderful for teaching the power of not yet, because when she says, I can't climb a tree, then it's defeating. So teaching the children that it's a not yet type thing. After you finish the book, there are many wonderful extensions you can do, but if you have the children construct a ladder or some other structure that could help Lou get up the tree, It could really be with any type of materials that you have available, and to discuss that she shouldn't let her fear stop her from doing something that she really wants to do. Well, thank you for joining in on this session. I hope you got some ideas for using multicultural text with STEM projects. The sky is really the limit, but the idea of choosing books where all the characters are not just white or perfect little children type of a look, getting different looks, different cultures, different ideas is a much richer way to use with your STEM activities. So I've got my email on there to contact me with any questions or just to chat about STEM ideas. And then there's the link for the evaluation, so you may get your CEU credits. Thanks again. Bye.